Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tat Padam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita, Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam, Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Who came in?
Me, Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. No trouble at all. Do you want a back chair?
I think I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I'll just grab some water if that's okay.
So we're still making our way through the 8th chapter. And the topic under discussion has been what happens when a person leaves the body. And of course, there's an exoteric understanding and an esoteric understanding. So the exoteric understanding is, again, the dispensation of the soul, etc., at death. But the deeper meaning, and the one that I think is most practical, is that it's really about meditation and leaving the body means that moment of samadhi when the mumukshu, the seeker after liberation, severs this identification with the body. And then the idea that I'm a person, that I'm this body, or the body plus the personality, is gone. It's going through a wonderful text. I think I've shared this with you, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, a Tibetan Lama. And he uses a Sanskrit term, Tathagata, to talk about the Bodhisattva. But Tat means that. Gata, gam gachati is the root, means gone. A person who's gone beyond. Same idea. So what verse are we on tonight?
22.
22. Will you help us out, please, Deepa?
Purusha sapara partha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. That highest Purusha, O Partha, is attainable by unswerving devotion to him alone, within whom all beings dwell, by whom all this is pervaded.
So again, Gita borrows the language of the Sankhya philosophy. Purusha literally just means a person. but it means the Supreme Spirit. It's another term for Paramatma, the Supreme Self. I think probably the earliest use of it that I'm aware of is in a hymn in the Rig Veda, the Purusha Sukha, the hymn to the universal person. But here, what Krishna is saying, that if we're devoted to that, meaning our sadhana, surely we will go there. Remember earlier, Arjuna had asked, what if you and I don't make it? What happens to a person who falls short of the goal in a particular life? And Krishna says, don't worry. You'll be born again in a family where you will get the spiritual sanskaras, the impressions. You remember your yoga, you take up, and your liberation happens easily and quickly. So do not worry. It's all going to work. And Swamiji used to thunder, it's an evolution, not a revolution. So where am I in the process? I don't know. But remember, the bud is not a failure as a bloom. And if I see a rose bud and I try to pry open the petals, I only destroy the bud. It doesn't make it bloom. So maybe you and I might have the thought, oh, I still have all these attachments. I still have all these triggers. I still have all these things in the world that tyrannize me. I get so upset at this and I long for that. Does this happen to anybody? Don't worry. Welcome to the process. We just keep doing the work. And again, Trungpa, in this reading I was doing this morning, he uses the Sanskrit, not the Pali. He says the practice of vipassana. Normally we hear the Pali vipassana meditation. Who here's done a vipassana retreat? How do they translate vipassana? Insight, usually. Insight meditation. Isn't that what they usually call it?
It's like passive observation, like equanimous observation of the self.
Yeah. What the literal meaning is, pash, actually it's drish, pashyati, it's an irregular verb, means to see. V is a superlative. It can either mean transcend something, superlative. Sometimes it means the opposite. So we have jnanam, wisdom, vijnanam, deep experience. You see. So it's to have, to really see things as they are. That's the deep understanding of it. And then Trungpa even goes further and he calls it Maha Vipassana, the great insight to see reality. So here, when the scripture says the person who does this practice with a devotion comes to me, doesn't mean after I die, I'm going to go to some place and there's a temple with a door and I knock on it and Krishna opens the door. Hi, Jim, how you doing? Come on in. No, nothing like that. When Krishna says, talks about me himself, he's talking about the self. So here, hasten slowly. Keep on keeping on. And important. Whereas Shankara always says, Shrunahu, listen carefully. You can't depend on, rest on yesterday's yoga. Oh, last year I meditated every day for 40 minutes. I'm not going to do it this year.
Jim, how do you know if you're making progress?
Very good question. Did you all hear that? You do not measure it meditation by meditation. But over a period of time, and I mean a significant period of time, say 6 months or a year or a few years, it's by the fruits of your practice. Are you less upset by the world? Do you have more peace of mind as you move through life? Are you less of a jerk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I more loving to people, and are they loving to me? Am I less worried about money and security? Have I let go of some of silly ego needs? I was talking with a friend yesterday. He's got a whole closet full of shoes. Just don't get shoes. Who here has a whole closet full of shoes? I'm curious. Gotta have a shoe for every outfit. For him, every potential outfit. It's just, I don't get it. But for some people, big deal. What is it about shoes? What is it about my identity, about the way I look?
So if you're not seeing kind of that trajectory, then does it mean that you're doing something?
Probably not practicing enough. Yeah. You probably, what I would do is, there are 2 sources you can go to. You can just simply Google yamas and niyamas, which are the basic practices we find in the yoga tradition. The other place you can go is for those of us who've studied Viveka Chudamani, the qualifications of a fit student. And all of these have been indicated in
Is that a book or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We can talk after class about it. I'll give you a copy of it.
Thank you.
But we also can talk about the trajectory of our sadhana, our practice. First comes Shravana, hearing. And that's our first entry point. You go to a lecture or a class, or you read a book, or someone talks to you about it. This is interesting stuff. That means that we may hear the scripture for the first time or read a book for the first time. And then the second stage is manana, which means to think about it. So we wrestle with these ideas until we come to the conclusion, I think this way of life makes sense. Very important. Because we get the opposite message from the world. The world says the one with the most toys wins. The one with the biggest title wins. The one who can vanquish their enemies wins. There's horrible stuff going on in the Middle East. Thinking that fighting and revenge, and defense and protection is going to work on either side. If we're convinced that this is a valid way of life, then comes several terms they use. Nididhyasana is the most common. Long and continuous practice, meditation. discriminate between the self and the not self. We're convinced, and I'll go through some of this. We can take a little side trip here. First of the qualifications, viveka, that firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real and the phenomenal world is illusory, is unreal. This is known as discrimination between the real and the unreal. Next is vairagya, this passion and detachment, that desire, don't achieve it overnight, to give up attachment to all enjoyments or experiences, better way to translate it, gained through the senses. Doesn't mean we don't enjoy the world or experience the world. Let go, let go, let go. And giving up identification with any personal sense of self, starting from the body up to and including, scripture says, the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I think I'm a powerful person. And the third qualification is the ones we use to tune up the mind, called Shama Adi Guna, Shama Adi Guna, qualities of Shama, etc. Shama, that peaceful state of mind when it rests in steady contemplation of the goal after having muhur muhu again and again detached itself from the chaos of the sense objects through a steady observation of their defects. Who here got upset this week? Tell me this is the first time you felt this. Was it? If you're like me, same issue, just the names and faces change. Same circumstance, just the outer stuff changes. Aren't you tired of it? It's so repetitive. It's so boring. Am I wrong? Was this a unique trigger this week? Yes, no?
No.
Yeah. Aren't you tired of it? It's what was, I think it was Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's how we ignorantly live our lives. Give it up. Drop it. That's Shama. Dhamma is not letting our mind get pushed out from thinking about experiences from the past. And that culminates in what Shankara calls uparati. Uparati means sense withdrawal. Those of us who are Raja yogis, they will use the term pratyahara. But they're the same. And that has two ways we can look at it. One is when we're meditation, we can tune out the stuff on the outside. But Shankara says the best uparati is when you're moving through the world and the experience of the sense data doesn't create vrittis or agitations, disturbances in the mind. You just let stuff pass through. This is a practice, Sophia. It's not easy, but it takes time to disentangle this knee-jerk reactivity of the mind. Then comes titiksha, forbearance, capacity to endure the vicissitudes of life, the negative things that come to us without the need for redress or revenge. My take on it, whatever comes, prarabdha, just the force of the past karmas. You know, I must have done something to somebody in another life like this. Now I get to experience the exact thing, know what it feels like. No big deal. But rather than reacting with redress or revenge, let it go. Instead, practicing reacting with generosity, with forgiveness, with an attempt to find understanding. Shraddha, faith. First meaning of it is like the word faith in English, having faith in the path, faith in the teaching. But the deeper meaning is we're able to like tune in to where the teacher goes. When the teacher's mind tunes up, you can go there. Swamiji used to say, meet me there. Our capacity to do that is our Shraddha. That's not in the English word faith. And the last one, Samadhana, tranquility. Again, when the mind rests, contemplation of the goal. And it's not to be achieved by any amount of oscillation. What about this and what about that? What about this and how am I going to deal with that? What do I do with this? What do I do with that? Anybody have a mind that does that? Being able to let that go is the practice of samadhi. This is good stuff. But this is the practice. This is the practice. And then the last one, anybody remember what the fourth qualification is? Mumukshutva. Burning desire for liberation. I tell people, self-realization is not difficult. Krishna himself has said in Gita, easy to perform. But it's incredibly rare. It's incredibly rare for a few reasons. First, most people don't even know it exists. If they know that moksha is possible, they don't come in contact with a person who knows what they're talking about. And third, they don't want it bad enough. You have to want it more than you want a lover, more than you want children, more than you want a title, more than you want to please your family. It has to be the most important thing. In Hebrew scripture, God says to Moses, I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. And again, the outer understanding of the thing is there in Canaan, ancient Palestine. Well, maybe Yahweh's God, but we're going to keep a little statue of Baal there, in the house. Maybe the mother goddess here and stuff like that. We're going to hedge our bets a little bit. But the deeper meaning is, I want money more than I want God. I want the approval of others more than I want God. I want sex more than I want God. I want attention more than I want God. It's got to be number one. So that's another list of qualities to cultivate. Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you, John.
Excellent question. Excellent question. And the way we judge our progress is very practical. It's very simple. This work is designed to make you happy, joyous, and free. It's designed to give you peace. It's designed to allow you to move through life without a sense of the burden of paranoid self-observation. How am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? That's so torturous. It allows us to regain innocence. Live spontaneously. Vedanta thunders that the goal of the practice is being Jivan Mukta, liberated while alive, liberated in this very body, not sometime after death. That happens too. Very practical stuff. All I can say is, so far, it's really worked well for me. Okay, a little bit of a sidetrack, but an important one. I think it's good for all of us to review that. Next verse.
Yatra kale tvanavritti ma vrittim chaiva yoginaha prayata yanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshava. Now at what time or past departing yogis go, never to return, as also to return, that time or path, I will tell you, O chief of Bharatas.
Now, this next section is a little gnarly because it talks about these two paths. The first is the path of the light, the path of the sun, the first 6 months of the year, wherein you will go to Brahma. And the second path, the path of the shadows, the path of smoke, the second 6 months of the year. And if you die, then you go to the world of the ancestors, the Pitris, and are born again. This is taken from mythology, cosmology of earlier scriptures. Take it, my opinion, take it with a grain of salt. I personally don't think it matters what time of the year you die. Swamiji died on August 3rd. He did not go to the realm of smoke with the ancestors and needed to be born again. Believe me, if some horrible person dies in February, they will be impelled into another earth by the force of their past. But it's here in the scripture, so let's briefly go through it. Go ahead.
Agnir Jyotir Praha Shukla Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojanaha. Firelight, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern solstice. Following this path, men who know Brahman go to Brahman.
Yes. So the most important part of it is people who know Brahman go to Brahman. Meaning, It's not like, oh, I know Brahman and I'm going to go to some place after death. The point here is at the moment of realization, it's not that I, Jim, now am a knower of Brahman. It's, oh, I've always been Brahman. Jim was just a very long and very vivid dream. Where did it go? It was there before and it's gone. That's what happens at the moment of realization. And again, I like to interpret this chapter that it's really about meditation, really about samadhi. Next verse.
Dhumo ratristatha Krishna Shanmasa Dakshinayana Tatra Chandramasam Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate. Smoke nighttime, the dark fortnight, also 6 months of the southern solstice. Attaining by these to the moon, the lunar light, the yogi returns.
So here, what he means is if you are not a knower of Brahman, meaning there's still vasana in the causal body, then the antakarana, the inner equipment, will then again be impelled into another incarnation. What does that mean? You may have moments of deep quiescence in meditation. But as long as there's still vasana, deep unconscious impression, that sense of egoism will return. Sometimes I call it a yo-yo state. All tuned up. Turn your attention back on yourself. And it's very clear. Oh, yeah, I get it. I am that space of pure awareness. But then somehow on my way home, thunk, down comes the veil of ignorance, and I never see it. And all of a sudden, I'm a person with some goal that I need to do to make me happy. Struggle, 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 struggle. This is the deeper understanding of what it means. We have to come back. Just means there's more work to do. Earlier, we were talking about the text Viveka Chudamani. I love that text. One of my favorite verses is 267, where Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. And here it means the same thing, meaning I re-identify. Then he says this needs to be conscientiously rooted out. How? Through steady and continuous identification with self. Now, we'll stop. Next sentence. The annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered liberation by the wise. Wonderful verse. What is the power of a vasana? Vasana has two powers. First, avarana shakti, veiling power, meaning, in my mind, the non-apprehension of myself as that ground of being, that space of pure awareness. Then immediately follows the vikshepa shakti, the projecting power, I think I'm a person. And simultaneously with that comes a sense of incompleteness, discontent, and there's always a goal. The goal is either I need to fix the world or I need to fix me. And the third element, kartavya, struggle, obligatory action. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more, better, different. That whole dream is created by the mind. And it is the result of spiritual ignorance, the non-apprehension of my self-nature. So the important thing to move us into the first 6 months rather than the second 6 months, that's mystic symbolism. Remember this mantra. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. If I think I'm a person, my mind is going to present some goal. And my mind wants me to believe that. And yoga says, drop it. See if I can remember who I am. Just take a deep breath. Slow down. You move too fast. Introvert your attention. Remember who you are. Well, that's right. Chidananda Rupa, I'm the form of this consciousness. It's all going to work out. It's all okay. You do as you will. How do I know I've gotten rid of avasana? If you remember who you are, at that moment, your mind's free from vasana. That's it.
If you remember who you are, what? Sorry?
You cannot remember who you are and have that as your direct experience if the mind is covered by vasana. Now listen very carefully. Desire in the end is not an impediment to self-realization. Desire is just another thought. But if I believe it, if I think I, the individual, must have that object of desire in order to be okay, then it's problematic. Can you see the subtle difference between that? I can sit here, tune up my mind, it's fine. Would I like a big hunk of chocolate cake? Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah, thought's gone. That desire just didn't do anything. It was just a thought. Oh, was there a question?
Oh yeah, I have a question. So some thoughts just come and go, but others kind of get stuck in the head.
Yeah.
So when they get stuck, is it worth it to try to analyze the thought, or is it a better use of time to just try to drop it anyway?
Well, you gotta be curious. Just don't fight and resist it. Just don't believe it. And the word for that is a wonderful word. The word in Sanskrit is vritti, which is usually translated as a thought. But it comes from the root vrit, which means to turn, where we get the English word vortex. So thoughts can just go by, not problematic. Exactly what you were saying. You spin on something, won't go away, keeps coming up. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
That's a vritti. What's the, I think it's the second Yoga Sutra. The first one is Hatha Yoga, something or other like that. Anybody remember what the next one is? Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the restraining of the mind stuff from forming vrittis. So you do that by first having insight, vipassana. You see it for what it is. Oh, it's not based on anything real. It's just the head spinning. So first, quit believing it. If you can try analyzing it, but the analysis that you want to do is, why am I doing attachment and identification? That's why. Believing it. Be with it. If it keeps going on and on and on and on and on, turn your attention to something else. Be of use, be of service. Let it noodle in the background. It'll go away. It is a finite thing. It cannot last. Now, here's an important metaphysical truth. Any psychic experience, like a vritti, that is resisted or denied will tend to persist. Any psychic experience that's fully experienced will tend to dissipate. So trying to resist, I'm not going to think about it, all that kind of stuff, really makes it last.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. Any of you remember the EST training? I don't think any of you are old enough. EST was started by Werner Erhard seminar training. It was the precursor to the forum, which was the precursor to Landmark. Any of you done Landmark?
Heard about.
Yeah. Well, one of the things he used to do in the training, he would ask, is there anybody in the audience who's got a headache? Raise their hand. He'd have them come up on the stage and sit on the stool. And he would say, okay, where's the headache located? He says, okay, well, it's like right here in my temple. Says, well, how big is it? Well, it's about the size of $50. Well, what color is it? And then do this over and over again. And in a period of sometimes just a few minutes, never longer than 10 minutes, the headache would go away. Which proves what I'm saying. What he would do would be to have people not fight and resist the headache, not ignore it, but be fully present to it, just as a sensation. And you don't need to go causation hunting. Oh, why do I have a headache? Doesn't do any good. Okay. Understanding is the booby prize, is what Werner used to say. Which is one of the traps of psychoanalysis. You go to Freudian analysis, and in the end, you understand why you're a hopeless basket case. And you're still a hopeless basket case. Does that make sense? What do you have to do? You have to change. You have to undergo the process of changing thought, changing behavior. Now, the behaviorists say change your behavior and the mind will follow. The metaphysicians say change your thinking and your behavior will change. You know what yoga says? Yes, they're both true. Because the mind and the body are not separate. They're just a subtle and gross form of the same thing. Work on both ways. Is that useful?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
One of the things I do when I find those thoughts that I just can't let go of is there's usually like feelings, a lot of emotion behind them, which I don't usually, the thoughts, whereas my attention is going, but if I stop and say, what am I feeling right now? The thought goes away and the feelings pass through pretty quickly.
Excellent. Same idea. Same idea. because you're fully experiencing the emotional tone that's in there. We make a distinction between buddhi, intellect, manas, mind, thoughts and feelings. They're really they're very much similar stuff. But you don't want to disconnect from the feelings. You're absolutely right. Do you all understand what Mike was talking about?
Yeah.
That's very good yoga. Very good yoga. I think we're almost to the end of the chapter, aren't we?
I think so.
All right, next verse.
Shukla Krishne gati yete jagata shashwate mate ekaya yatyana vrittim anyaya vartati punaha. In conclusion, Krishna adds, the path of light and the path of darkness available for the world are verily thought to be both eternal. By the one, the path of light, a man goes to return not. By the other, the path of darkness, he returns again.
So this is again mystic symbolism, it's metaphor. The path of light is to seek moksha, to seek to rediscover our essential nature. This is the path that frees us from the insanity of living a life of suffering. The path of darkness, gimme, more, better, different, only leads to further and further entrapment. So we're either headed towards moksha or we're headed towards a grosser and denser life. Not worrying about my next involvement. Let me see if I can give you a more concrete example. One of the terms that we find in scriptures is the fallen yogi. Who's heard that term before? This is a person who may get into doing sadhana, spiritual practice, because of a deep tragedy, because of a crisis, because of a near-death experience, encounter with a Mahatma, and for a time they'll do sadhana. But then they get disappointed. It's not happening fast enough. I'm not getting what I thought the payoff is going to be. I thought I'd have a wife or a husband by this point, or a better job. And so I'm just going to go back to the world. And what frequently happens is these people fall more deeply into samsara, caught up in the world even more. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they're seen to rise again. Great. Please.
What does it look like if you get more involved in something?
Suffering. It's real simple. What is the cause of suffering? Yeah. So if my life sucks, if I'm miserable and unhappy, guess why? You can diagnose yourself. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
It's real simple. Buddha's Four Noble Truths. Life, the way most people live it, is suffering. What's the cause? The cause is attachment, thirsting, craving, aversion. Freedom from craving is freedom from suffering. We prove that in our ordinary life in two circumstances. If your life sucks and you're unhappy, Don't you enjoy deep sleep? What object is causing the pleasure of deep sleep? None. What's actually happened is the craving has been ceased for 7, 8 hours. We also experience it momentarily when I satisfy the desire. If I really want chocolate cake and I have a really nice piece of chocolate cake, I don't want chocolate cake. It's gone. Oh, that was really good. Then another desire arises. Can one be permanently free from the tyranny of an addictive relationship with life? Scriptures thunder, yes. The Buddhists call it Marga Satya, the truth of the road or the path. The yogis would call it sadhana, Sanatana Dharma. Is that useful?
Yeah, thank you.
Very good question. So, we cannot fool ourselves. The fruit of this practice should be greater serenity, greater peace of mind. That isn't happening. Then there's something I'm not doing. And again, the place that we're suggested to look, go back to the qualifications of a fit student. We need a tune-up, Swamiji used to say. Is there one of those elements that I'm not paying enough attention to? If, on the other hand, I'm finding I'm letting go of stuff, not as agitated, I'm not as stressed at work, I'm not jealous or disappointed like I used to be, I'm more content with the way things are, not upset by other people's opinions like I used to be. Right, see if this stuff works. All right, next verse.
Nete sriti partajana anyogi muyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Knowing these paths, O Partha, no yogin is deluded. Therefore, at all times he steadfast in yoga.
Yes.
At all times be steadfast in yoga, O Arjuna.
Yes. So understand, if you take the path of the bhogi, B-O-G-H-I, bhogi, practices boga. No, B-H-O-G-A, boga. What is bhoga? A bhogi lives a life like this. I want to be happy. The way to be happy is to satisfy as many desires as possible. That's the philosophy of the bhogi. The end result is more desire. A yogi practices yoga. A yogi also wants to be happy. But a yogi lives a life endeavoring to reduce the number of desires entertained, which leaves a lot more space, a lot more freedom, a lot more tranquility. Doesn't mean you don't have any fun anymore. You shut yourself up. That's not yoga. Has anybody here had some kind of an addiction, whether it might be food or destructive relationships or alcohol or an attachment? Who's had something like that smoking, and been able to give it up. Doesn't it give you freedom? It's freedom. That's you. Those are the two paths. Kathopanishad. After that whole first part, when Lord Death tries to distract Nachiketas, who's asked the question, when a person dies, are they or are they not? And Lord Yamaraj, Lord Death says, okay, I'll give you the truth. Then what does he say the first teaching? Two paths approach a person. I love the language. It doesn't say, I approach them. They approach me. Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas, the good. Preyas, literally what's dear. Swamiji used to say the electable and the delectable. Wise person chooses the good. Now, I have good news for you. The human mind prefers the familiar. We interpret the familiar frequently as pleasurable. Unfortunately, we frequently will choose the familiar rather than the good. Where I see this is when people have serial romantic involvements, their picker's broken, they keep choosing partners that aren't very good for them. Do we know friends who might have done that, or maybe ourselves? Why do we do it? Because it's familiar. It's usually like an echo of a parent. But if we start to choose the good, if we keep doing it over and over again, the good starts to become familiar. Then we start to enjoy it. Case in point, Vinayak has gone back to the gym. How long have you been going to the gym now?
A year and a half now.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it when you first got back to the gym? When you were overweight and out of shape?
No, not initially.
No. Who of us does? Now do you enjoy it?
Yeah.
But you go regularly.
Yes.
Yeah. Shreyas and Preyas. There it is. Very clear, worldly example of this principle. Same with meditation. Oh, it's such a struggle, Jim. I'm waiting for inspiration. It doesn't work. We need to practice. We need discipline. But in time, prayer and meditation will seem as necessary to your mind and heart as food and air does to your body. Next verse.
Vedeshu yagyeshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chatyam.
Oh, wonderful. Good job.
Yeah, I keep just hard switching between the meters. But okay. Whether the fruit of merit is declared in the scriptures as springing up from the study of the Vedas, from performance of sacrifices, from practice of austerities, and from charity, beyond all these goes the yogin, who, having known this, the two paths, attains to the supreme or primeval essence.
Yes. So Here, what Krishna is referring to is these two portions, we can say, of the Vedas. There's the karma kanda, the ritual portion. So the Vedas, in their wisdom, have ways for us to appropriately deal with every part of human existence. Health, marriage, employment, relationships, children, every dimension, politics, all of it is there. This is the karma kanda, the action portion, the ritual portion. The vast majority of the Vedas deal with that. But those who focus on that in life are still on the wheel of karma. But the jnana kanda, the knowledge portion of the Vedas, is called the Upanishads. Upanishad, to sit down near. And this is the section of the Vedas that deals with what is the nature of ultimate reality. Who am I? Do I partake of that ultimate reality? Here Krishna says, wise person focuses on the end portion of the Vedas, Vedanta. Vedanta, what we study. Any thoughts? Next verse.
That's the last verse.
And I think there's a little Upanishad at the end.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Akshar Brahma Yogo Nam Ashtamodhyayah. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 8th discourse ends, entitled The Yoga of Imperishable Brahman.
So I think we'll end early and we'll start the 9th chapter next week. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. The royal knowledge, the royal secret. So we have a few more minutes. Does anybody have any other questions? There were some very good questions tonight.
I'd love to look at the book you mentioned, Jim.
When you finish, I'll give you one.
Thank you so much.
And that's what our Thursday night class is studying.
Oh, cool.
Is it okay if I stop the record?
Let me chant. We will. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.